Hello, 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 check. Are you house? Hello, check.
Guys, make sure everyone's phones are on silent. Uh, so you can come in front. Good morning to one and all. Welcome you to a convergence of intellects, where the Industry Interaction Committee bridges academia, business, and students to forge cross domain synergies in addressing pressing global challenges to be embracing in innovation, collaboration, and transformation. I, Khushbu Gupta, along with my co-hosts Kashish and Shah, am privileged to set the stage for what promises to be an enriching and insightful event. Before delving into the profound discussions of our conclave, let us take a moment to embrace the city of Kashipur, a city that boldly rises in this beautiful state of Uttarakhand, which has not just preserved its historical charm, but has also embraced modern changes, catapulting itself into an industrial marvel. Through the ages, Kashipur has witnessed the ebb and flow of dynasties, crafting a unique cultural tapestry from the modern empire to the reign of Chand rulers of Kumaon. Each chapter has left us enduring imprint. In today's world, Kashipur transforms before our eyes, evolving into an industrial hub thanks to the foresight of the State Industrial Development Corporation of Uttarakhand Limited. Strategic vision has turned Kashipur into a powerhouse for various sectors, from cutting edge pharmaceuticals to the robust textile, paper, and automotive industries. The pharmaceutical sector thrives here, marked by pioneering innovations. The textile and paper industries, deeply rooted in the region's resources, flourish harmoniously, blending tradition with technology. As the wheels of progress turn ceaselessly in the automotive sector, Kashipur firmly establishes its spot on the industrial map.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the Indian Institute of Management, Kashipur. Nestled in the foothills of Himalayas, Indian Institute of Management, Kashipur, stands tall in the dynamic landscape of management education. It has achieved a notable 19th position in the latest NIRF ranking 2020 and secured a reputed 8th position in the prestigious Times Management Institute ranking. Established in the year 2011, this esteemed institution has quickly become a symbol of innovation, leadership, and commitment in shaping the future of businesses. We're delighted to share that Indian Institute of Management Kashipur has achieved 4 stars in the Institution's Innovation Council (IIC) rating in for the academic year 2022-2023 by the Ministry of Education. The institute innovation captured over the design innovation lab, DIC, symbolized education, technology, design tools. Capital is core values, transparency, green consciousness, proactive engagement with the stakeholders. And let's explore innovation, street and focus. Also get
It is now my honor to introduce our distinguished panelists. Allow me to present the first guest for the event, Mr. Abhishek Gupta, the dynamic Chief Marketing Officer of Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance. With an impressive 8-year stint in the Edelweiss Group, he is a seasoned professional with boasting over 2.5 decades of experience in sales and marketing. Mr. Abhishek's passion for customer experience and innovative marketing strategies has positioned him as a driving force behind Edelweiss Tokyo's life's brand salience. His illustrious career has not gone unnoticed, as evidenced by accolades such as being recognized as one of the 25 most outstanding marketing professionals of India at the World Bank Congress 2014 and securing the CMO Transformation Award at the Lakshya Pitch CMO Awards 2023. May I now extend the request to Professor Somnath Chatterjee to facilitate Mr. Abhishek Gupta. Thank you, sir. Our second eminent panelist for the event is Mr. Ashish Singh Joshi, Chief Executive Officer of Classic Legends Private Limited, with a remarkable 2-decade journey in the global motorcycle industry. Having previously led Triumph Motorcycles and played a pivotal role in the revival of Royal Enfield, Mr. Ashish brings unmatched proficiency in product and brand management to the table. His international network and academic background, including an MBA from the prestigious London Business School, uniquely positions him to lead Classic Legends, where he orchestrates the perfect blend of tradition and innovation in the world of iconic two-wheelers. May I now extend the request to Professor Somnath Chakraborty to facilitate Mr. Ashish Singh Joshi. Thank you, sir.
The third distinguished speaker for the event is Mr. Lokesh Natoo, India head of Altus Group. He is on a mission to propel growth in analytics, technology, advisory, and consulting commercial real estate. Mr. Lokesh brings over a decade of expertise spanning in telecom, automotive, education, and insurance industries. Recognized for his outstanding contribution, he achieved the Chairman's Award by Aditya Birla Group and earned accolades in the Economic Times Leaders Program competition. Driven by people and processes, Mr. Lokesh embraces challenges and remains engaged in diverse interests like chess, writing, and music. May I now request Professor Kunal Ganguly sir to felicitate Mr. Lokesh Natoo. Thank you, sir. The next distinguished speaker for our conclave is Mr. Ribhu Shadwal, VP and Head of Engineering at Airtel. He is a seasoned leader with nearly 2 decades of expertise in delivery and operations. His impressive track record spans in consulting, and he's a graduate of leadership program from INSEAD, France, a well-renowned B school. Mr. Ribhu's proficiency shines in communications industry, where he excels in identifying and prioritizing critical businesses and skillfully harnessing technology for optimal outcomes. His adaptability and talent makes him a standout figure in the professional sphere. May I now request Professor Kunal Ganguly sir to felicitate Mr. Ribhu Shadwal. Thank you, sir.
Last but not least, the fifth panelist to join the conclave is Mr. Siddharth Desai, Senior Vice President, Citibank. He's a seasoned professional with over 17 years of expertise in financial domains such as planning, analysis, reporting, auditing, and valuations. Mr. Siddharth's extensive experience spans through financial reporting, intercompany chargeouts, and leadership roles in cross-functional and cross-regional teams. Beyond the boardroom, he's an avid runner, squash enthusiast, movie buff, and passionate about sharing knowledge through teaching. May I now extend the request to Professor Utkarsh to felicitate Mr. Siddharth Desai. Thank you, sir. Facilitating today's session, we are honored to have Dr. Shobha Tewari, a distinguished academician and strategy expert. She holds a PhD in strategy from IIM Bangalore and is currently an associate professor at IIM Kashipur. With 86 months of strategic experience, her versatile roles span strategic planning, operations, research and advisory, and business development. Dr. Shobha's expertise in strategy, corporate governance, CSR, innovation, and internationalization is showcased through her international engagements and through leaderships at conferences. Her commitment to global connections is evident as Chair International Relations, reflecting a career seamlessly blending with academic rigor, corporate insight, and a passion for advancing strategic knowledge. May I now extend the request to Professor Utkarsh to felicitate Dr. Shobha Tewari. Thank you, sir. It is with immense pleasure that I introduce you all to Professor Somnath Chakrabarti, Dean Academics, Professor Kunal Ganguly, Dean Development, and Professor Utkarsh, Chairperson Placements and Corporate Relations. As we delve into the cross-domain synergies for addressing global challenges, let's shift our focus to an upcoming event that aims to explore and foster collaboration across various domains. The floor is now open for panel discussion.
Hello. Okay. Hello.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome our, esteemed people from the corporate world. It's always very nice to have you here while we are able to give, a theoretical, uh, backbone to our students. It is these visits and these interactions that give them a very good grasp of what actually waits for them in the corporate world. Uh, the world is fast changing as, uh, we have been able to envisage. We will share a very small story, which many of you might have heard, but that story reflects the reality that we are going to discuss today. So we'll recount it again and the implications also. So there was once, a inventor who invented chess, and he went to the king along with his invention, and the king was very happy that he has made such a good game. And the king said that, what prize do you want in return? So the inventor said, uh, very humbly, King, I don't need any prize for that. But the king was insistent. So the inventor said, okay, basic necessity that I have in life is food for me and my family. So I would have a very small request that there are 64 squares in this game of chess. So in the first square, you keep 1 grain, in the second square, 2, and subsequently till the 64th square, please keep on doubling the number of grains. Okay. So the king thought that what a, I was asking him to take any of the riches, and what a request this simpleton has made. And the king said, okay, your wish would be granted. Now here the challenge starts. Okay, till the first half of the chessboard, okay, till the 32 squares, it was more or less a linear kind of group. The moment they went to the second half of the chessboard, the number of grains became so much that the whole kingdom didn't have enough number of grains. To be very precise, to the point that they reached the 64th square, the number of grains become equal to 368 trillion kgs of rice, which even if we go by all the technological advancements that we have made today, and in 2022, if we see 500 to 720 million tons of rice is produced globally. And at this pace also, it would require more than 500 to 700 years for the king to fulfill the wish of that artisan. Two things are very much implicit in this entire story. One, human mind thinks linearly. And second, exponential change just sneaks on us. We are not able to comprehend it. And this is what technology is doing to us today. Phones that we are carrying today are far more powerful than the computers that were used to send astronauts to moon by NASA. And within the ambit of this change, today we will discuss how the interdomain synergies that could help us face these challenges. So this is context of our discussion, and I would like it to be very open-ended, anecdotal, as far as possible. Please recount the things that have happened to you in your organization so that our students could learn. So I would start with Lokesh because he happens to be sitting just next to me. And Lokesh, I was in fact liberty to go through LinkedIn profiles of all. One thing came out very visibly from your profile, where you say that three aspects that you focus on are people, processes, and profits. And these, in fact, all of us represent three different domains also: finance and quality and engineering. How do you strike a balance between them, and how do the these inter-domain synergies are accomplished?
Yeah. I never played the piano with us. Chess. So I like chess and I could actually visualize what you're talking, so it was very nice. See, when you talk about people, processes, and profits, rather than giving generic stuff, I'll give my experience. Okay, I started my career with Aditya Group, big company, everything is set. The moment I joined the startup, e-commerce, automotive, in my first week, I was sent in three cities because we were in three cities: Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad. I thought I went to three different companies. Right from what people were wearing, what they were talking, what they were selling, what they were getting was all different. So time I thought, okay, you work in a company to understand what is process and why you need process. So you use 90 to
Hello. Yeah. So we see a similar experience, right? That's what process brings in. That does not mean once you have a process, it's a lifelong or a decade-long thing. Nowadays, the rate of change itself is very fast. But at least it gives you a decorum to begin with, and then how boldly you think, how do you innovate, will refine it. This is process vertical, which brings in the shape. Uh, People think, I mean, for last more than 5 years, my email signature always have this one last line. I guess few of IIM Kashipur people, I mean, that email ID would have got. The highest calling of leadership is people development, because end of the day, we are dealing with people. Uh, E-commerce domain, I will just relate to example, right from your investors who are people, your CEO, top management, and your drivers. E-commerce heavily rides on your last mile logistics. They are also people. Every person is very important in the business. Let's say we have a pantry boy in the office. Is he making a big decision? We might think no, the CEO is making a big decision. Imagine in that pantry, that cafeteria, at one day there is some insect and it can be life impacting. And if he ignores and gives that coffee to somebody who is a big person, impact and risk and consequences of that decision. So people, end of the day, is very core to anything that we do in life. Correct. Processes are for people and for people to do better. And profits, this is something I really enjoy doing. So rather than giving general stuff on PNL, what I would say is, we often think, right, when there is a stress, there is competition, the easiest target, soft target is people. Make an Excel, the ones who are in red, you know, I mean, this has become a big news. So many times we hear of layoff, right? In my mind, people build PNL. People don't break PNL. But how do we do that? Somewhere I was able to institutionalize people to profitability in e-commerce setup, where every individual, it's not, see, sales team is something bringing revenue, which is top line, but everybody else is an enabler to sales to bring in that revenue. So for that particular end-to-end transactions, is your unit economics in place? Many a times we forget basic of business and we are into too much of marketing, or maybe let's say, jazz that is all around. So if you club people to profitability, your fundamentals are in store, and then you know what to play on. That's what you are saying about COGS, right? COGS. Once you know what is my COGS, I would know what I have to play with. So somewhere what I thought, these three P's, I mean, we have four P's in marketing, right? Kotler. I mean, now that I'm in college, I'm remembering all this. So these three P's, if we work genuinely with value systems, largely your business is mistake proven. Like, you don't insert any anomalies or any deficiencies in the business model. As much as you do that, maybe the road is exciting, and you build a very fundamentally strong unit, team, company, group that can cross borders, and that's where nobody can copy you. They might take, let's say, one person in the team, they might copy something in branding, but again, this unit altogether gives a very cutting edge competitive edge to you compared to other businesses. So that's where I say, if I love focusing on these three, they are interchangeable, I mean, at one point of time, and that's where you build in your competency. Yeah.
That was a nice take on things, Lokesh. Ashish, so you have been associated with many iconic brands, and I think youngsters would be identifying with them a lot. I would just means you have been associated with launching so many iconic brands in India. You have taken iconic brands abroad. What were the typical challenges you faced under this, global changes that are happening around?
So that's a very interesting question. Uh, There's also, see, brands that we have launched or the brands that I've been blessed to work upon, all of them have had a retro, a nostalgia, that kind of flavor to them. Now, this is probably one of the most difficult categories of brands to bring back because technology has changed. And what's happened is there are a lot of people who remember the old ones. Now, what happens with that is the biggest challenge is where do you start again? Do you start where the earlier brand had left off? Do you come in with something which is absolutely modern, brand new? Or do you come in somewhere in between? So where do you go? That's the first question to answer. Because see, what are brands? If I ask this this cohort of students here to define a brand, there's a lot of different definitions which will come about. But to my mind, one of my peers at London Business School had defined a brand as a promise. What is a brand? It's a promise which is fulfilled multiple times over many years. That's the most simple definition of brand that I had ever heard. And that stuck with me. Because imagine this, if we were to ask people here, everybody would define, some would define brand as marketing, some would define brand as positioning, some would define a brand as a product. But at the end of the day, and I'm just going to repeat it because there's a lot of our youngsters here. A brand is a promise fulfilled multiple times over many years. Now imagine this, you've been promised something which was fulfilled 40 years ago. Is the promise going to remain the same in today's context? So that is one of the biggest challenges we faced. How do you make a brand relevant, a brand which was present in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, relevant to today's generations? See, motorcycles in India specifically, the audience is quite young. Most people in India start riding a two-wheeler as you hit the legal age to ride a two-wheeler about 18. The biggest segment of motorcycle buyers today is 18-35, which means lots of you here are actually target audience for a motorcycle. But you wouldn't remember a motorcycle brand from the 60s, 70s. Now, how do we make our brand relevant to you? And I had a theory which I had put across in at IIM Kashipur about 4.5, 5 years ago. How do you talk to people of what is this? This is Gen Z, Gen Y, or millennials. At some point, I think millennials are no longer in schools like this anymore. There's 2-3 things. One is authenticity. The other is the connect. See, this is a generation which is a very social media savvy generation. How do you connect? So the first thing is, whatever product or service you're offering, does it look good? Because this is a generation which has a lot of visual appeal. So if a thing looks good, they want to think about it, talk about it. The second is, does it do the job that it promises to? Does it fulfill the promise? And the third is it authentic? And what is authenticity for this generation? It should be on Google. Google should say or corroborate what you're claiming. Now imagine one of our brands, if I talk about Java, for example. Is it good looking? Of course it is. Does it fulfill the promise does it deliver the promise that you hold out? Yes, it does. Is it authentic? When you Google about it and You see somebody having started the company off in 1929 and what they did and how they came to India and how they survived and blah, blah, all of that. These are the three things that then make youngsters connect. So my first challenge that I said was about what do you do? Where do you bring in the brand? The second is how do you build core target audiences connect? These are typically amongst the many. These are two when you brought a brand back to India. Now, taking a brand from India to the international markets, I would say we haven't taken an Indian brand outside India, but we've rather taken a British brand outside India. So the company we set up we always had an international focus, which is why we opted to purchase or to acquire a British motorcycle company or a British motorcycle brand. Now, have we hidden the fact that this is Indian owned? No. Again, because authenticity. Authenticity is important. So you can't claim that this is a British brand and is produced in the UK. No. You can say that it is a British brand. What we did for the British brand was it was designed and engineered in the UK. Because again, if you want to relay the track of authenticity, you've got to keep it authentic. A British brand should be designed and engineered by British people there. So we set up a tech center in the UK in Coventry to be able to do that. Because had we said that this is a British brand or a British product, but is designed and engineered in India, you're breaking that track of authenticity. So authenticity at the end of the day is very, very key. So these were some of the typical challenges, and I'm sure as we talk along there's lots more that we can talk about. Maybe at another forum.
Converting calls into assembly line concept. Things have changed. That was very early and somewhere in the 2010s, and now we are 10 years ahead. What in the last 10 years, or maybe in the last 5 years of your association, are the actively the changes that have happened and the changes that are happening in the time?
Certainly. So, I mean, the first thing we bring out, right, the merit model that is there. We talk about cross domain synergies in the merit model. To bring out the merit model, actually need a lot of synergies across multiple domains, right? It's the very start of it. I don't know if you have researched a bit on it. It needed to bring around our partners. It needed to bring around our supply chain. It needed to bring around new financial models to work with partners. It really had to get a lot of different domains come together to bring it to life. It was very successful in India. We have actually replicated that across Africa as well. So these companies to be successful. But well, coming back to what has changed, I'll take two examples of what has changed. And this will be one that is the first change and one that is an evolution, right? So one was the first change that, I mean, all of us went through during COVID. So if you know the business of Airtel, typically if you talk about SIM card, you get a SIM card at literally every corner of the country, right? In the corner of the country. And that's where people recharge as well. So you walk up to, is it still not? Better now? All right, thanks. So you walk up to a retailer, you walk up to someone standing somewhere under an umbrella in a corner of the street and you do a recharge, right? COVID hit and those places got shut down. How do you survive? Right? One is how do you survive as a business? Second is how do people use the communications, right? How do you get people to do the recharges? How do you get them to pay the bills? It was like an instant flip of your business model. Right? It was known for its sales and distribution prowess that was there, but now all your distributions are closed. How do you enable your customers to start continue using your services? It had to be a first change that happened across instantly that had happened. Right? So we had to rework at our models. We had to look at what was available. How do I reach my consumer? Right? Few things that came out. one thing that was available everywhere was medical stores. So we had to do new partnerships with medicine chains that were there in the country. We said, help us do recharges. Anyone comes to you, they want to do recharges. And along with that, we had to get our technologies to enhance as well, right? To be enabled that now those medical store systems which would get in touch with our systems to do the recharges. We had to enable people who were tech savvy, small villages, small towns. You have very few people who actually have credit cards or bank accounts that they use, right, for recharges. Most of the people don't. We had to get to a model where we had to encourage these people to be able to do recharges for people around them, right? Because there's just nothing else that we could think of at the moment. How do you encourage these people, typically the youngsters, to be available to encourage them? Basically, how do you give them some? How do you monetize this use case, right, for them, so that they are enabled to go ahead and do recharges for people around? Right, that forced a lot of change in, again, the whole of our operating model, the whole of our tech as well. Everything that was happening offline for us had to instantly happen online. And anyone who could walk to a store and do something had to do it online. We had to enable a lot of deliveries to happen. Right? Anyone who wanted a SIM now, connectivity was of most importance. Right? How do we enable people to go and deliver? Till now, you could just walk into any store anywhere and get a SIM whenever you want. But now that is not possible. We had to reach the last mile to be able to do the deliveries. So this was the first event that I was talking about, right? And that forced us to change everything that we are doing the way we are doing for the last many, many years to instantly flip around. And all of these needed, again, synergies across multiple domains. So that's one, right? And that brought in a lot of change. The second that I say which is progressive, right? So we have seen 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G come in, and that's a general technological advancement that happens, right? And that brings along its own change of your whole org as well. Till 2G and 3G, voices were still predominant, and you have to look at how do you monetize your voice, how do you make it cheaper, of course, for the people. When 4G came, everything moved to data. Voice is literally free anywhere you go, right? That's a global phenomenon now. So all your thoughts, all your business models that were on voice needed to move to data now. How do you monetize data? Right? How do you get people to use more of your data? Your analytics goes into that, right? When are people going to use more data? How are you going to price your data? How are you going to move the data around? So the whole teams that were set, right? Now coming back to the people factor in this, people had to be retaught. The thinking had to change. The analytical models had to change, right? So there's a whole change that happens because of the technology launch. And same as we move to 5G as well, right? Again, 5G brings its own set of challenges. The amount of cybersecurity that comes in this, right? The monster that you have, the amount of data monetization that will happen on this, right? The use cases that come in 5G again becomes a lot different than what we had on 4G. 5G again, if you have to. So Airtel launched 5G, right? If we just launched 5G by ourselves, what would happen? Nothing. Because unless you have a device that actually can operate on 5G, there's no point in Airtel launching 5G. So we actually had to work with the device manufacturers, understand when are their devices going to come in the country, what is their shipment timelines, right? What are the pricing that's going to be, and where it's going to land. So a lot of, again, when you talk about not just within the company, outside the company, a lot of ecosystem needs to come together to make these happen. I think that's.
It was just saying you introduce this back. And it's telling like why we are trying to come to the 5G, you have to be very, very relevant ecosystem.
Exactly.
Already with the devices. Ecosystem is looking the changes with the farms, the suppliers, the other partners, they all have to be. That's the big challenge. Calendar rigidity, and that's my question for.
So I worked in telecom sector before this, right? And Airtel was a competitor then. But you need to appreciate what is right. Geo disturbed, killed so many, except one, and that's Airtel. And that's where so he gave so many examples of cross-domain synergies. And that's why number one remains number one, right? That's the mindset because of a lot of things that happen internally.
in the light of these changes.
It's better now, right? All right. So before I jump into that question, right, since you mentioned anecdotes, I think I would like to share something which brilliantly summarizes how a collaborative unit looks like. So I heard this from one of my prior bosses, and I don't know how true this is, but it does its charm, right? So when few years ago, when the then US president, was supposed to visit NASA, so what happened was he just ran into a janitor there, right, one who sweeps the floors and stuff, and into the elevator. And he asked him, "Hey, buddy, what are you working on?" His answer was, "Mr. President, I'm working on sending a man to the moon." So, that is how a collaborative unit should look like, where even a janitor feels so included in in what the organization is doing, right? So now, when you coming back to your question, right, about how do we build agility in this in the environment that we are working in, right? Especially for someone like me who comes from an FP&A or a financial planning and analysis environment, right? The concerning geopolitical environment currently, right? We have like two wars going on in two separate continents. It is concerning, right? Most of our uh, major economies are facing inflationary concerns. And as we get into 2024, if not a full-fledged recession, we are definitely looking at a slowdown, right? So now what happens is our businesses, right? When I say businesses, our sales team, the CEOs, CEO, the bankers, investment counselors, they demand a lot of analytics from us, right? And this analytics is like they want it at the click of a finger, right? Gone are the days when, like, let's say if somebody would like to understand, hey, run a model for me. If let's say the Federal Reserve had cut interest rates by 25 bips next year, what would happen? I cannot say, all right, give me 2 days, I will get back to you, right? It is now at the speed of light. Now, what will enable me to do to make this happen, right, is when two things, right? First, collaborate with the business partners itself, because my models or the output that they produce will only be as good as the inputs that I get, right? So that is where a lot of collaboration with my research team, the in-house economics team, with the businesses, right, as to what are the inputs that you are factoring in, right? If the Fed were to, let's say, actually cut the rates by 25 bips, how will our product mix change? Give us that inputs that will enable us to run our models. And this collaboration does not happen only during the time when we are building a budget. It has to be a cohesive, continuous dialogue throughout the year. Then comes technology, right? Because with so many platforms, IIM, Tableau, Python, etc., available, we are a very big beneficiary of that, right? Because the day I want to become like a trusted advisor for my business, rather than just a gatekeeper of the budget, I think that is when my partnership with the technology domain comes in, right? I need to talk to them on a regular basis as to, all right, 80% of my time is currently being spent in running manual Excel spreadsheets, right? So how do I change that? Is there anything you can help me, put on Tableau, right? If it is merely just me pulling reports, right, and then just fancifying it with some graphs and charts, why can't it be done on Tableau as an example, right? So that is where this the partnership with technology has really helped us, right? And Citi being very big on technology, this collaboration is extremely important, right? Now, when speaking of agility, right, and Ashish mentioned about Gen Z, right? So I was reading a global HR report recently, which says that by 2025, minimum 25% of the global workforce will be represented by all our friends sitting here, right? The Gen Z population. Now, these people come with very diverse asks, right? Their demands, their aspirations are very multifaceted. Correct? Gone are the days when salary used to be the only thing that used to motivate us, right? There is a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion, on flexi work hours, right? Use of technology, right? So now, when my partnership, let's say earlier with my HR partners, right, used to be limited to only hiring, right, and the comp discussions and so on, or let's say during the time of exit interviews. Now it has to go beyond that. I need, because forget 2024, even right now, of my 27 member team, 30% are from this population. I am the only with gray hair in my team. So that is what necessitates me to talk to HR on a regular basis to understand what are the aspirations, how can I fulfill their aspirations, right? How can I retain this set of my talent, right? What programs, what initiatives can I run? And a classic example of that is we are running something called as reverse mentoring. So what happens here is we identify new joiners or people with 1 or 2 years of experience right from college, right, to mentor the MDs and the directors in the organization. Now I know it may sound very counterintuitive, but it has worked really well. So here the focus, of course, is not all management gain, it is about the use of technology. So imagine a 22-year, 23-year-old teaching an MD, how to use technology, how to make your presentations more impactful with the use of technology. So this reverse mentoring has really worked. So I think these are the initiatives which really help bring agility in this dynamic world.
We capture it. With that, we move to Abhishek. Abhishek, so every time we back to the such a big deal. Yes. There are certain candidates that you would love to.
Okay, so before I go into that answer, let me just give a little background on the industry, because that is important to understand in the industry. We sell a product that no one wants to buy. No one wants to buy. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I want to buy a life insurance. Health insurance, yes. COVID mainly impacted health insurance, life insurance, not so much. Motor insurance anyway is regulated, so you have to buy it. Life insurance, as I nobody gets up in the morning, I'll buy life insurance. Nothing. It's not a pull product at all. When does a customer buy a life insurance? There are only two scenarios when a customer ends up buying a life insurance. Number one, when a customer is contacted by a life insurance advisor, and then kind of need starts to get created. That is one scenario. And the other scenario is when there is a trigger. What are those triggers? The triggers is for life insurance. Number one is when you start earning. So most of you will have that first trigger in your life when you start earning. But that is still not a very big trigger, because the moment you start earning, your first action is to probably go towards spending or going towards investing, not life insurance. The first actual trigger happens when the first set of responsibility comes to you, which is marriage, then child, then when child starts going to school, then when the child actually goes for higher education. So all of these we say triggers in life. And one of the biggest triggers in buying a life insurance is when you're attending a funeral. Okay. All of these scenarios, that's when people think of buying a life insurance. That is one data point. Second data point is, of all the life insurance business sold in the country across the industry, 92% of them are sold when there is an intermediary involved. In spite of we saying customers buying on their own on this thing, across the industry, it is only 8% of customers who actually go to a company's website and do all the process end to end without any intervention. So there's always an intervention. That means that always a person who's helping the customer buy it. Of these interventions which are happening, 90% of these interventions are face-to-face interventions. That means an advisor comes. The advisor could be an insurance agent, as we typically call. It could be a bank RM. It could be a telecaller who has been in touch with you, but then to fulfill the documentation and anything, there's somebody who's coming to your house. Or if you're buying a large policy, you actually have to go to a medical center and get yourself done the medical test that the insurer prescribes. So there's always an intermediary or a human person involved who's coming and spending time with the customer. Now coming to your question, when COVID hit, that human interaction went away. 90% of the industry, the business जैसे हो रहा है, that went away. You are not allowed to meet the customers. That is one part. Second part is, when did COVID hit us? COVID hit us, or the lockdown happened in March 2020. For all of you know how the life insurance industry is, it typically works on a Pareto's principle. साल का 25% business, 25 to 30% business happens in March. Because that's when the financial year is closing and suddenly everybody wants to save tax. Not the right reason to buy insurance. Tax saving is not the right reason to buy life insurance. But unfortunately, that's what happens. Or usme bhi, since we all like to do things at the last moment, last ke 10 days are the most critical for life insurance business.
last 10 days of financial year business is most critical for life insurance, and that got taken away suddenly. Impact on the industry was huge. So why you are saying positive impact? In fact, the industry, especially in the beginning, got very adversely impacted by COVID. So what did we have to do? Understand this insurance advisor. These people are selling life insurance from 75 years. LIC is 75 years old. For 75 years old, from 75 years, they know only one way to sell life insurance, which is to go and meet the customer, convince the customer, and then convert it into a sale. That was no longer available. Overnight, the industry had to change its way of selling. Overnight. And it is not important that, and ऐसा नहीं था कि industry के पास tools नहीं थे, everybody had their tools. All of the life insurers are fairly digitally equipped and digitally enabled that we can sell online easily to the customers. The issue was the sellers. They were not equipped enough to sell. And the industry had to work really hard to enable these agents or advisors to sell online. Because these advisors, ke liye, if they don't, because they are not employees, if they don't sell, they don't earn. Simple. And that was the thing that industry did fantastic job in getting all of these people equipped so that they can sell online. And that's a huge job. Did it help the industry? Yes. For initial 1.5 years of COVID, this push product became a slightly pull product. We had increases in the inquiries about life insurance, but we all humans also have very short memory. We were feeling vulnerable at that point of time. Today, we are back to where we were pre-COVID. We are holidaying, we are spending time, concerts are back, everything is back. So life insurance industry is also back. Still no one gets up in the morning and says, I want to buy life insurance. So that is where we are. COVID, yes. What did COVID do positively for the industry? Number one, yes. Some bit of pull came into the industry. Second bit is people understood the importance of family. Because when we were holed up in our homes, we realized there's no one else other than our family to be with us. That is the only support system we have. And therefore, we will do everything we can to take care of our families, which works well for insurance. That's the second part. Third part is we understood importance of doing good for others. We really understood doing good for others. We became a socially aware society. Whenever an society becomes a little socially aware, their intention or their ability to protect themselves actually goes up. And insurance is nothing but taking protection. So that bode well for the industry. And obviously, we all became very health conscious. Overall, the awareness about remaining healthy, keeping healthy, building immunity, that went up, which works very well for the industry because overall, if the health quotient keeps on going up, the premiums will keep on coming down. If that happens, you can actually get more and more people in the insurance fold. So that's how industry got impacted. And yes, if all the functions would not have come together in changing the way insurance is bought and changing the way industry has been sold, I don't think the industry would, in spite of not being able to sell face to face, the industry still grew by close to 12% during COVID years. That would not have happened.
So in this, so you know, each new incident face also there's a challenges. I think as like challenges that we face, yes, appreciate it with new normal or other organizations.
So it's an interesting question in general, and I guess it has nothing to do with maybe, let's say, COVID, new normal, and all of this, because it's always a battle, right? Whether it is my function or whether it is your function. Uh, Typically, if we take any process, there are two functions, or within function, there are two verticals that interact. So there is a point of interaction where, if let's say I am dependent, let's say I am in HR, I want to give nice employee gifts. But for me, who is giving me these gifts? That is procurement function, which is not under me. If procurement function fails to plan or fails to deliver, end of the day, who is going to fail? HR, correct? So in general, how do you make these boundaries invisible, or rather make it collaborative? That is where the success comes in, because I might always say I have done everything end to end, 100% perfect, but your function, the process that is before you and process that is after you, they also need to be equally successful. If let's say I run at 100% efficiency, but the function before is, let's say, at 60%, function after is at 70%, my overall efficiency is gone for a toss. Correct? So that's where a collaborative approach. Interesting example that I can give, which was implemented, was, I mean, it might sound very cliched, but worked effectively, very well, was balance scorecard. So BSc, maybe you would have learned in the course itself. Balance scorecard, typically you can also design in a manner, you say marketing, HR, supply chain, operations, and finance. Now that also becomes interdepartmental battle, because who is scoring well? I scored badly because of somebody else. So what we did was, we devised aspirational caring. Let's say we all belong to different function, and if you ask customer centricity, everybody wants to be, oh, we need to be good at it. Operational efficiency, nobody will say we need to be bad at it. If you talk about CSAT, or customer satisfaction, or employee satisfaction, NPS, everybody wants to be good at it. So we created these aspirational KRAs, and we did not align it with the function, because every aspirational KRA will have multiple departments contributing to that particular goal. That's where team started building and working together in a way honestly was never seen before, because it became more of an aspiration to a level, in, I mean, ISO certification is something that we do, right? uh, One way of looking at it, tick in the box. Other way of looking at it is, really I want to grow and I want to make my business better. Why? Because these auditors, they come from a certified agency, like we had from TUV Nord. They come from cross domain, they come from FMCG, pharma, telecom, every sector that you can have. Now when they come, they end up telling us a lot of improvements, and these improvements come, forget cross domain, cross industry. So audit, typically in audit, people don't want to be in office. If I'm a warehouse manager, there is some, I'm telecom, you will know, there is some drama, and I might lose my job because it's a threat. So typically audit, one way is run away from audit, second is aspire to face an audit, because biggest improvements will happen there. Do not consider that, oh my god, these are observation, these are NCs. See, they are path for improvement. There is a book, right? Obstacle is the way. So obstacle is not something that will stop you from going ahead. So coming to your, I mean, that's where, I would say that these challenges, how to make it collaborative, end of the day, cannot be just a mission, vision, and plain English. How do you implement it across, to best of my this thing, how do you make it right from intern to the CEO? It has to be across all the levels, with measurables, initiatives, and that's where you get a real good end outcome. And somewhere it has happened in multi industries, and that's where I can say very proudly, I've shifted industry across. So it was IT, then telecom, then e-commerce, and now it's commercial real estate. But we are not building buildings. We are basically analytics and advisory for that. So across the industry, there are some extremely good practices that you can pick up and you can implement, because every industry will have certain areas where they're phenomenally well. Can you translate that, and can you make your organization better? That's how the journey, and it has to be fun, and it has been fun.
And most of the companies, this one is complete incentivization is it. Okay, alignment is not. It's not. Because we are able to depend on
Yeah. So end of the day, I mean, we can talk about a lot of things. We can talk about right from CSR to HR to all of this. In my mind, everything boils down to how good a human you are. If because let's say CSR, great initiative, but we would have heard greenwashing, right? People just make some initiative to show we are doing CSR. They are not doing CSR. People might implement balance scorecard internally. They are still competing with each other. So, right? I mean, it can be from anywhere. It need not be from top down, or it can be from right from the bottom in your organization. There is a famous quote of Simon Sinek: if you can look at your left, you can look at your right, and you can take them along. That's culture, correct? End of the day, what you reward for. A lot of companies will have values. So in Altus, we have 5 values. Okay, think boldly, exceptional experiences, etc. So the awards are aligned to values. And how it is happening is, let's say I want to nominate. I mean, I can nominate Siddharth on a particular value, giving example. That's the only way you can give awards. Otherwise, typically, powerful managers will keep on giving awards to their teams. Correct. So culture, end of the day, there is a saying: culture eats strategy for breakfast. Correct. So that is something which will be a differentiator. End of the day, it's like human, right? You told yesterday, SRK said the amount that you start becoming famous and you start becoming bigger, you need to be more human, down to earth, because that's where, because the moment you go up, you will fall big time. If you are small, you fall, nobody will notice. Only you have to cry and you have to wipe your tears. But the moment you are becoming big, people are watching at you. And companies are like people. Some companies die in 20 years, some companies live for 200 years, and that's where culture and value will come into play.
So for us, you hire for attitude. You don't hire for skill. You don't hire for knowledge. Hire for attitude. Because attitude is a way of life. And attitude can be a little core, but you will, in terms of a crisis situation, you will always tend to go back to that base. Which means if you want synergies, and this is where we talk cross-domain synergies as well, you bring in people with very similar attitudes. You bring in people with that winning mentality. You bring in people who don't fall away in the face of adversity. Because imagine this, every business will have a problem at any stage. See, if you didn't have problems to solve, you wouldn't need managers. The word manager comes from managing something. More often than not, it's managing a problem. If you look at it, when you boil it down to the core truth, you are actually managing a problem. It could be a people problem, it could be a capital problem, it could be something else. But core is a problem which needs to be managed, which is why we need managers, which is why we need management schools. So imagine this, that is the thing which is actually providing a livelihood for lots of people. So now you want people who don't fold in front of that. You want people who can, or see, team synergies work. You may have different domains, but if you have the same attitude, that is where you feel that you belong to something. Now imagine this: people join clubs. People join. There's another way of calling yourselves a tribe. Now, there's a difference between a tribe and a group. And most of my young friends here, I would encourage you to go and actually Google it and find out the difference between a club, a group, or a tribe. In a club or a group, there's a lot of things which aren't prescribed. In a tribe, a lot of it is prescribed. That's one of the key differences. There's lots more. I think you guys will figure that. But if you feel that you're working with a team of people who subscribe to the same attitude, you feel you belong, then your domain does not. If you belong, and see, imagine this, if you belong, there is a counter side to it, which is ownership. If you feel you belong to something, that thing belongs to you as well. Which means, imagine you're working for a business and they have a product or a service. You belong to that product, which means that product belongs to you as well, the counter side. And if you build that ownership, and with that ownership comes that cross-domain synergy. Because if everybody is working towards, and guys, don't for a minute or a second think I'm giving you a cliched answer, because it works this way. It's easier said than done, because getting the right people with similar attitudes. But I can give you lots of examples. I come from armed forces background. My dad was in the Indian Army many years. Now, why does the army stick to a structure? What is that structure? Some people will call it a caste-based structure. Some people will call it archaic, generations old. But imagine this: if you have the Jat regiment, what are they actually saying? We are bringing in young Jat soldiers or young Jat kids. Soldier joins at 16. That soldier who's joined at 16, and if you have other kids of 16 years old, 17 years old around him who've come from similar backgrounds and have the similar attitude, they will bond into a team very quickly. So they're not saying that we want to recruit people in there based on a particular caste. It's unfortunately become like that. But they're saying we want people who will bond together, will have that synergy. And even in an armed forces unit, you will have people with different domains in there, but they work together because their lives depend on each other. So if that facet of our society functions very well, it functions very well because they're all similar in attitude. And that's what we try to do even in corporate life. Bring in people with similar attitudes. So recruit for attitude. Now, there was a question in there about how do you retain these. Now, retain is also a very important feature. See, so one of the things that is very important for retention is the kind of work that you do. See, somebody once told me learning and earning must go hand in hand. So that goes without saying. So you should be part of a learning organization. You should be part of an earning organization. And that is what it does for you in terms of pension. If you do varied kinds of work, if you will do 1 year of work and replicate it 10 years, your 10 years of experience, actually, if you sit in front of an experienced recruiter, they will just tell you it's just 1 year of experience which has been replicated 10 times. Doesn't make sense. Do varied kinds of, and which is why we always believe in putting marketing people into sales, bringing sales people into marketing. I've even sent R&D people into after-sales service. Because who better to understand the customer's dilemma or problem than somebody who's worked at making the product? So cross-domain functionalities, again, get people to experience multiple domains. It gives them varied experiences. That's where you retain people. The other thing I say to everybody, and especially to youngsters of this age, the choices you make in your 20s will come and hit you on your face in the 40s. Don't come back crying in your 40s, I've hit a glass ceiling. It's all because of the choices that you took. If you talk about work-life balance in your 20s, God help you. I know our ex-chairman of Infosys may have a problem with it, but if you talk work-life balance in your 20s, seriously, who do you complain to in the 40s that I could only rise to this much, or in your 50s that I couldn't make the grade, I couldn't do this? It was because of a choice that you took. Imagine this, the choice that you make in your 20s, you will continue to make that choice. Imagine this, if you chose work-life balance in the 20s, in the 30s when you have families and children, in the 40s when you have children who are growing up, in mid 40s, 50s, when some certain health issues might creep up, you will always choose work-life balance. And if you do that, well, there are a few others who wouldn't, who would stand up against you, who would probably make the cut before you. So that then don't be envious. Because as I was talking to Siddharth here, we were coming up the lift, there are no free lunches in life. There is a price to pay for every decision. It is the price that you're willing to pay for. That's again something, some of what I do specifically is very plain. What I'm saying here is something which my team hears from me, I don't know, once a month maybe, because that is reality. So as you move into corporate world, that is the reality. You have to enjoy your time here, because as soon as you get to work, that's where, as we call in my industry, the rubber hits the road. That's where the real deal and truth is. My HR manager is here in the crowd as well, I guess. He might be the best one to answer because he's interviewed loads of people alongside. One of the biggest things that we look for in terms of attitude is that never say die. Imagine this, I keep telling people that if, and I relate to cricket, I've played a decent amount of cricket in my life as well. And I keep telling people, even last year's incident, India-Pakistan playing in Melbourne, it was, I think, Virat Kohli hitting those sixes. If he didn't believe that he could do it, where would we be as a country? Now, I'm relating to cricket because we've just come off that Cricket World Cup, a disappointment, much as we wouldn't have liked it to be. But that never say die. That never say no. See, there are people who will at first attempt, you put a problem to them, can't be done. Now, I'm an engineer as well, and I look at engineering as an attitude. What is that attitude? You look at a big problem, you break it down in parts, you find the solution to those small parts, and you stitch together a big solution. The attitude that we look for is not very different to this attitude. Don't get faced with a big problem and say, oh, I can't.
So I'll start with that, right? We say we have a very strong process, and people follow the process. Now there's process around, we have annual appraisal process that happens, right? Where you have benchmarks against whatever you have performed. If you don't, process says you could potentially be fired. Again, industry where your competitor comes in and offers your product for free for 2 years, right? What do you think would have happened to those processes, or what do you think would have happened to people, first of all? The sales are plummeting. right? You're going in deep red. You're not meeting any targets. Your profits are going down. Your revenues are going down, right? If I would have followed process, or if the company would have followed the processing that you're supposed to get, X% of growth, but you're in red here. Well, at the end of the year, you're just fired, right? So the process is well. I think if that is what we would have done, we would not survive. I say the process needs to be there, but it needs to be to an end. At Airtel, we pride ourselves to be a very customer-centric organization, right? So we focus on the customer. I think that is what really pulled us out of the time that we had for the 2-3 years where we had a very tough competition, right? The process it's good to have, but I would say it's just a means to an end. It should not be the as you say, pathar ki lakeer ki yahi hona hai. If you're able to achieve your goal with that process, well and good. If not, then the process needs to be changed, not goals. Right. I'd like to.
So speaking of processes, right? So of course they are, in a if I talk about my organization, right, in a huge multinational setup like ours, it is important to be driven by process, right? So for example, I mean, unless let's say the controllers or the accounting team are done putting their numbers in the system, how will I forecast? Right? Unless they have like closed the books, ensuring that there are no anomalies, all the accruals, etc., have been booked. How do I begin my forecasting process, right? But then there also, like he mentioned, right, there also needs to be that leeway. You can maybe document a process for that, how to deviate from the process, right? There is a process for deviating from the process, but then that still works, right? Because in an organization like ours, where there are huge cultural differences, right? I will give you one more example. So since we are headquartered in New York, right? We deal with all our onshore partners are sit in either New York or in Florida, right? And there are big cultural differences. So the time we set up this center, right, in 2011 in Mumbai, initially we used to face a lot of cultural issues. A very simple example is, in the US, let's say if you are more than 18 and still staying with your parents, you say, oh, you still stay with your parents. Whereas here, it's like, oh, you separated from your parents. So that is, that big is the cultural difference. And also how you address people, right? In Japan, people get very offended if you do not, attach sans behind, after the name. So what we had to do was, because that center was new, we had to, we had to design a process wherein we invited, linguistic and cultural experts, and we trained everybody across at that time, today it's a center of 700 people. At that time, it was just 50. So we trained everybody involved in this processes, and especially working with folks outside, right, on what should be the basic process of how you address someone, or how you write emails to someone, right? And then, what happens is, to address these challenges and to encourage this collaboration, right, it should flow from the top. Culture always flows from the top, right? We were speaking about culture earlier. So that is where, when you embed this in the goal setting process, right, it helps. So we at Citi have a very unique a dual scale process, right? Something similar to the balance scorecard that you mentioned, wherein we focus. So there is a what rating and there is a how rating, and both have equal weightage, right? So a goal, for example, real life goal that was given to me at the start of this year was, I need to remediate 20% of my manual Excel spreadsheets and put them on into some form of automation, right? Now, of this, X percentage had to be driven in partnership with technology. So even if I, let's say, do 30%, right, but all was citizen led, I would not score on that rating, because they wanted me to reach out to my technology partners and engage with them, right? Because in that process we learn, correct? And then to address these cultural differences, right, what we did was, so then, because way back in 2012, right, when the center was new, we had these challenges where people said, oh, I said something completely unintentionally, but it offended the person sitting in Japan. Now, what I will do is I will just resort to email communication. Now, that doesn't help, right? So that is where, again, a small process of goal setting comes into play, wherein we made it a rule that no, if you are having 5 conversations with this person, I don't care how that goes. At least 2 need to be a verbal communication, right? Where you pick up the call and talk to that person, because that is when you will come out of this and we act as a cohesive unit. So yeah, so while process in terms of how you set your goals and how we all adhere to it is very important, but then there also should be, given the situation, right, there, and even the agile environment that we are living in, such deviations, I think, are okay, right?
Essentially, we are in the business of managing risk. Why? Because I am making a promise to my customer today that you be with me for 20 years and you pay me for 20 years. At the end of 20 years, depending on the product you have bought, I'll give you X or Y or this thing. If I'm not able to manage the risk properly today, I'll not be able to fulfill my promise. So that aspect of business, where because the risk is involved, because there's money is involved, we actually deal with people's money. Processes are extremely important. I'm actually will not talk much about the importance of the process. I would actually like to take a different view over here. Why are we in this business? Why are we in life insurance? Why are you on motorcycles, banking? Why? At the risk of sounding something which is very contrarian, we are in this business because we have to make money. We have to make profits. We have to make profits for our customers so that I can service them properly. I have to make profits for my distributors so then they can take care of families. And third is I have to make profit for my shareholders. ये बहुत clear है. I think we should not lose of that side. And if we are in the business of making money for these three important stakeholders, process is just one of the tools that I have available. But this process needs to be flexible, keeping that end objective in mind. Yes, purpose is important. Our purpose is to protect dreams and aspirations. But I am be able to fulfill that purpose only when I, as an organization, am making money. And but the only thing that we have to take care, make money in the right. Make money in the right way. Don't cut corners. Don't do anything that is not to be done. Don't do anything that is. So these three important stakeholders, and that's a controversial statement. Many times I have to choose that out of these three, मैं किस दो का भला करूं. Probably one of them might not get as much benefit as the other two are getting, but that's a management call. And that's where processes come in. That's where people come in. That's where attitude comes in. That's where everything comes in. But we should not lose of goal of that.
So disruptions will continue to change. And it's inter-domain and inter-functional cooperation. Come with disruptions or not. If there is disruptions, two challenges you face in your industry bring about these synergies. And how you tackle.
Oh, so you're asking for challenges because of this. In my mind, it is an opportunity. It will remain as an opportunity. I'll give a slightly philosophical answer. Maybe we have a lot of industry veterans. I love chess, right? Chess in 1996, it became better than humans. Okay. Still, we want to see human competing with each other. Okay. Already that AI or whatever. See, AI is a there was a video in 1992, Satya Nadella is teaching Excel, So that time Excel was what we today call is AI, generative AI, etc. So this will keep on evolving. With this, the challenge might be the inertia, which is always there with all of us. Okay. Right now, if all of us have told, just stand up, we'll have inertia. Kyun bola? Correct? Because we are nicely sitting. So it is as simple as that. With every challenge, it's an opportunity. Opportunity will never come with a label. So as much as you stay relevant, and it's not something that, okay, I know AI, somebody doesn't know AI. It will become part of life very smoothly. At the same time, you need to be open about it. You cannot say, no, I will still make presentation in Microsoft Word. I will not use Canva. Be aware that how it is made in Canva, or hire somebody who can make it in Canva. Have complementary skills in the team, and that's how you can evolve. So having the right mindset, whether you want to do, whether you want to delegate, align with the changes, because as much as you align with changes, you remain relevant. Otherwise, suddenly one morning we wake up and we are irrelevant in the system. So in a way, being aware and getting the skill in your team is very important. Whether you do it or your team member does it, but the skill needs to be there. You cannot say we do not have that skill. That's how I would sum up.
Shobha, I'm going to talk about a real life disruption which is happening in the automotive industry. We're all familiar with it, electrification. To my mind, electrification is a change that is happening. It is a disruption. But does it change the consumer's attitude to what they want from an automotive product? It just replaces the fuel with the charge. It replaces the battery. Now suddenly the battery and the container of the battery becomes a replacement for something which is already there. The motor replaces the engine. There's power electronics which replaces. And again, don't get me wrong. It's easier said than done. There is a lot more to it. But for simplistically, I'm saying, from a consumer's point of view, it does not change their need for automotive product. So that is a disruption that you have to live with, you have to get used to, you have to embrace the change. As Lokesh was saying here, you become part of the change. You cannot say, no, this is not going to happen, or we will not be a part of it. No, this is reality. It will happen. You have to be a part of it. And believe you me, the world is going to be better off for it. And as organizations who will embrace the change and keep pace with it, you will be better off for it as well. So that is the answer to the disruption. Now, something like COVID was a disruption which was not a welcome disruption at all. It was a sudden disruption, but that sudden disruption taught us a few things. It taught each one of us about adaptability. As an organization, we were using Microsoft Teams before, but were we using it as efficiently for collaboration as we are using it, as we used it during COVID, and then continue to innovate on it? No. So it accelerated the pace of adoption of, and I'm just picking up Teams because Teams is very widely used, became prevalent during COVID. We were using it, but we were using it for lesser tasks than what it was designed for. It was actually a product which was ahead of its times and has now become with the times because of the pace of adoption. So even events like COVID teach us that you need to adapt, and you need to adapt quickly and embrace the change.
So just to build on that, right? Till now, if you look at the history, there have been changes, there have been advancements, right? But the duration over which that would matter a lot, because very frequently there's going to be someone coming in who's if you're not disrupting yourself, right? So the innovation factor has to be very high. That's going to constantly evolve, and with time it's just going to get shorter. The whole life cycle is going to get shorter. You're just going to have constant disruptions. So it's going to be very important to be agile, to be able to be ahead of the curve. Especially in technology, if I say it has to be, the involvement in R&D, the involvement in research has to be extremely high. That will keep going higher as we go ahead, right? That's one. The other piece, especially related to technology that I see, right, that's going to be difficult is with the AI and LLMs coming live. How do you differentiate between what is right, what is wrong? So the content that we are getting, right? How much of it is true? And that's going to be one key challenge that I see as we go ahead, right? What's truth, what's not? We're already seeing that a lot of news around it. But with the evolution, that's going to continue, and that's going to be one of the key areas that I potentially see that to be a problem space, at least for the near future, till they figure out a real way of overcoming this. I think that's one challenge. Another piece is going to be, of course, cybersecurity. Security and theft, it's going to get, with technology evolving, it's going to just get much more easy to do, and many more people are going to fall through. So I think those are going to be a few key challenges that we need to.
So, from a banking standpoint, technology, of course, is the biggest, I would say, both a challenge and an opportunity as we go across, right? Because if what has happened so far is what we are calling disruption, then we will have to come up with some other noun for what is yet to happen, right? So, nobody of us now goes to the bank to pay our bills, right, or to withdraw money, right? Everything, I mean, anything can is app based. So now, how will that happen, right? When you adapt yourself to what is happening around you, right? And learning does not necessarily come from taking a course or reading books or whatever, right? A lot of learning comes from talking, right? When you just talk, when you go out to the people in operations and ask what are you doing, right? Or how do you deal with this situation? When I go to the regulators and ask them, or the people working in the regulatory department, right? The last time when let's say the Federal Reserve had asked us for something, this is how we did it, but it took us 20 hours. How do you make that happen in 2 hours? So that continuous learning, I think, is what is how we will address this challenge, right? And convert that into an opportunity. And just one famous quote by our very own Mukesh Ambani, right? He says, "I do not get sleep on a day I made a big loss. I do not get sleep when I haven't learned anything in that day." Right. So that, I think, is even at that level, right? It is big. We need to keep learning daily, like how Ashish mentioned, right? The second big challenge that I see, especially in this context, is once Gen Z takes over, right? Imagine how the workforce would look like. The baby boomers are still not out, so we will have like 4 to 5 different sets of generation, right? In within working in the same organization. Now, how do you take everybody along? Right now, the work-life balance point that he mentioned, right, I am somewhere in between, where I do not completely agree with what Mr. Murthy had to say, where you work 80 hours a day. I'm somewhere in between now, and a very interesting conversation that I was having with Lokesh yesterday. So when I say 80 hours, right, what do I mean by work-life balance? Does it mean that I work just 40 hours and then just sip beer by the pool, for the rest 40 hours? No, it is doing something different, right? Change of work also is rest. Correct. So that, I think, these are the kind of strategies, right, in terms of collaborating with this and with this generation, that will help taking all these 5 generations together. And collaboration, in at the end of the day, needs to become a habit, right? It is not merely a project or something that you do so that you get to talk about it in town halls, etc. It is a habit.
Since everything has been said, so I will probably talk challenges that I see, especially in the coming generation. And this is there is, and don't take me wrong, there is a less ability to understand the business. We are very good at our function. We do not understand dhanda kahan se aa raha hai. Very clear. You need to understand what are the levers of the business. What levers should be turned so that business keeps on coming. Unfortunately, and there's an opportunity to all of you who would be entering into a work life very soon. If you have the ability to understand the business, you will do well and you will rise much more than anybody else. So yes, it's important to be a functional expert, but it is also important that beyond your function, beyond your analytics, beyond your marketing, beyond your HR, business kaise hota. If you understand that, and if you understand the levers of the business, you all will grow much faster.
Very insightful. Regarding the full discussion, I mean, I want to thank the students. See, when the film is interesting, and he's also interested in this, they're not considering. So, you're not present enough to say that, just for example, they are in the second half. If you see the previous century, but not in the last century, on the construction that have players themselves before. And looking at
All the panelists for sharing their views and opinions. Due to the paucity of time, we shall only be taking one questions from the students. So we now request all the students pose the questions. We'll only take one or two questions due to the paucity of time.
But at the same time,
So I can maybe take a first stab at it. So I think the biggest hindrance to this can be only we ourselves, right? Because we have said heard numerous examples here about technology disruption, about people disruption, etc. Right? But as long as you are wearing the learning hat on, and as long as you keep your egos and biases aside and talk to people, right? You can even learn a lot from people who are junior to you, right? Let's say in terms of designation or younger to in terms of age. As long as that keeps happening, I mean, these hindrances will of course come and go. I'm not saying it is going to be seamless, right? But as long as you have the right attitude on, the right thinking hat on, I think we can convert anything into an opportunity.
just to add, if you do not understand the why, problems will understand. You might understand the what of it. If you do not understand why, and if you are the project leader, you are not able to percolate down the why. There are problems. Moment why is clear, there is a line.
See, normally programs extend because goalposts shift. Programs do not extend just because you wanted them to extend. Normally, all of our program managers or project managers, as we call them, they're pretty good at anticipating issues, problems that would in normal course creep in. Yes, if there is a problem that is crept in which wasn't anticipated, yes, goalposts will, not goalposts, timelines will shift. But more often than not, dealing with clients or dealing with stakeholders, it's the goalpost itself that has changed, but the timeline in their mind hasn't. So the only way to deal with it, my mind, is be open and transparent. Whenever there is a goalpost change, it needs to be aligned with a timeline change, so that you suddenly don't end up at a 3-month place and say, why is this not completed? When what you were actually going to deliver in those 3 months itself is completely changed. So open, transparent dialogue every time there is a problem which could potentially impact timeline. See, you're typically talking from a project point of view, time, cost, and quality. These are the three things that we always monitor. Now, has the goalpost impacted the cost? I am sure it would have, because if it is impacting timeline, it's impacting cost. So as long as you're transparent, or as long as a stakeholder who's asking you to make the change, or a problem which is causing you to make the change is informed well in time and actions taken accordingly. I think transparency, that's probably it.
So my question is,
Very specific question, but let me answer it this way. Let me first answer it by telling you what the government has been doing to enhance safety. And I will go from the automotive industry to the two-wheeler industry. Automotive is four wheels as well. Now, we were 5 years ago not even having any publication of results for either global NCAP safety ratings, or the government has recently now instituted India NCAP, or Bharat NCAP as it's going to be called as well. I imagine this 5 years ago, every single car that we were selling was failing completely. It wouldn't even score 1 star. Some of the largest manufacturers in the country could not even ensure 1 star on global safety. Today, we have a lot of 5-star products. Indian made, Indian designed, Indian R&D, Indian engineered products which are 5-star. Now, what changed? The consumer suddenly started looking at, I am not only looking at the cheapest, but I also want to feel safe. That forced people, manufacturers, to make that change. And people were willing to pay a little extra for those. Imagine having a car which didn't even have airbags, where ABS was not mandated. Today, all of those are there. You don't only have ABS, you've also got something called EBD, which is electronic brake force distribution, emergency braking systems. Now, that is on 4 wheels. Now, what's happened on 2 wheels? On 2 wheels, there was no mandate for anti-lock braking systems, ABS. Even on smaller bikes, the government has instituted something which is called CBS, which is combinational braking system, which means that both front and rear brake engage simultaneously. Just like in a 4-wheeler, the front and the rear brakes engage simultaneously. That has added to a lot of the safety. So ABS, CBS, better build quality on the product. So there is a feature that we have started putting on our motorcycles. So one of the things is the motorcycle does not start if your side stand is kept down. The second is we have a roll-on sensor on the motorcycle. So if the motorcycle tilts beyond a certain angle, which means that it has detected that it has fallen, all the electrics come. Anti-spill fuel tanks. So all of these things are adding to the safety of the motorcyclist. But don't get me wrong, a motorcycle is only as safe as the rider. The motorcycle can be as safe as it gets, but if you ride without wearing a helmet, if you ride without wearing protective gear, if you're not wearing the right foot gear, you are putting yourselves up for damage. You only have one skin. If you fall off the motorcycle, your skin will get hurt. But what if you were wearing a leather jacket on, or if you were wearing a safety jacket on top? You'll destroy the jacket, but your skin is safe. You only have one skin. It will regrow, but it will leave scars on it. So safety on a motorcycle is only as good as the safety of the rider. And then again, how you ride. If you're going to sit on a motorcycle and try and be all macho and try and do stuff that you shouldn't be doing, you will fall, you will injure, and injuring yourselves, you'll injure somebody else as well. So riding a motorcycle comes with a lot of responsibility towards oneself and towards somebody else.
Again, I think it is all about attitude.
When you're outside, so we have managed to this one. The first question would be, at the onset of the discussion, we said that is a promise. Now, I think that is what the key aspect that is products and now for me, that for me, the market. So would you help the existing aspect made to introduce something completely new and for us?
It's a loaded question. Read into what I had said. A brand is a promise fulfilled many times over a period of time. So imagine this, for a new brand coming into the market, that promise is not understood. So by the time you have fulfilled that promise and done it multiple times over, it might take you 10 years, it might take you 15 years. Somebody is saying to me that we will come in and we will spend a lot of money and create a brand. Not really. So brand creation will take time because that promise will need to get fulfilled. And if that promise does not get fulfilled, see, imagine this. Take a promise which is a meaningful promise. See, a brand can make a promise and say, okay, let's say Bisleri lying in front of us says, I will make clean drinking water available everywhere. Now, clean drinking water means what? Am I making Bisleri available everywhere? Am I making Aquafina available everywhere? Am I making... So, promise that is pertinent to you, a promise that you can aim at fulfilling consistently, and a promise that is actually wanted by somebody. You can't go and promise the moon to everybody and say, I will get you the moon if you do this. You buy my product and you will be sitting on the moon. There are a few FMCG brands who promise you that. But do you really believe those promises? You don't. Because you take them with a creative license that yes, they had a creative license. There is a recent ad with Chand Tara Todla Wala. I don't know what, it's a drink. It's energy drink, I think it is. Now, do you really believe that promise? So will they actually in 20 years time be able to tell you, we were the brand who helped fulfill that dream of getting you the stars? But imagine this, Red Bull gives you wings. It was a promise they fulfilled over years. How? Because their definition of Red Bull gives you wings is very different. Their creative interpretation of that is very different. You do actually believe, it brings a smile to a lot of people's faces when I said Red Bull gives wings. Because after you've had a can of Red Bull, you will actually do stupid, crazy things which you wouldn't do without having that much caffeine in your body. So it does actually give you wings of sorts. So that's the promise. So if they were to build a completely new brand today, it would take them 30 years or 20 years for people to believe that Red Bull actually gave you wings. Now imagine if they were a new brand and it said Red Bull gives you wings, you drink a can and start jumping out of the window. I haven't got wings. Now, what happens then? So it takes time, it takes a certain amount of creativity to get you to believe that.
Next time, you are you open your mouth, yes, think that always be that
So, irrespective of the age, whether it is digital, whether it is analog, or whether it is a hybrid age, I follow a certain principle that I believe has stood the test of the time. Because I started working when there were no emails or where there were no mobiles. So there we are. So I can say decent amount of. There's a framework that I follow, which I call it DOR framework. And if you follow that framework, it is going to help you in every sphere of life. The DOR framework says, whatever you are going to do, whatever you are going to do, number one, it should be differentiated. The moment we say differentiated, that means it should be different from what others are doing. And probably it builds on to what you were saying earlier. So differentiated is fine. You can do a lot of things that are differentiated. You can say, I will take you to moon. That is differentiated, definitely. The second, and if you put it on a triangle, so the upper part is the D, which is differentiated. The second part is, I'll come to the second part last. The third part, which is the R, which is relevance. Is it really relevant for the TG that you are after? अगर उनके लिए relevant नहीं है, so even if you are differentiated, nothing will help. Nothing will help. And that relevance will come only if you spend time in understanding the consumers, understanding the category, and spend that time religiously. So that is relevance. Third, which is the most difficult to do, and which probably Red Bull has been able to do fantastically well, is the O, which is ownability. Can you as a brand, can you as a company own it? Can a brand, any other brand come to the market and say, I will give you wings or I'll take the adventure wala within the energy drink category? Can any other brand take the adventure wala platform? No, because that platform has been taken. Red Bull owns that. So if whatever you are doing is differentiated, is ownable, and is relevant, you will always have a winner on hand. It's my guarantee to. The problem is most of the marketeers, most of the business will just focus on two of them. It could be either two of them. Unless and until this is a table which has three legs. Unless and until all the three legs are behaving properly, this table will not be stable. Similarly, is going to be what you're going to do. If one of the three elements is missing, and it is in any element of life, not just marketing, not just branding. If one of the three is missing, you will not have a very long run.
Now that is